Hi everyone, Deidre here from Our Upcycled Life and welcome to my channel. Are you tired of throwing away perfectly good items that could be repurposed into something beautiful? Well, you're in luck because in today's video, I'm going to show you how to upcycle your trash into treasure with easy and fun DIY home decor projects using items from your recycling bin. Not only are you going to save money, but you're also going to help reduce waste and create a more sustainable home. So let's get started and turn that trash into something amazing. Before you toss away those hangers that come with your newly bought clothes, consider upcycling them into a piece of home decor. The process is really simple, but since the hangers are made of plastic, we need to prime them with a spray primer first to ensure that the paint adheres properly. I'm using this bin spray primer. It works excellent. Once the primer is dry, it's time to start applying some paint. I'm using some acrylic paint here in some different rustic shades. You can also use latex paint, making sure that you're covering every corner of the hanger. To create a stippled effect on the hanger, I'm using a combination of gold and brown acrylic paint. However, experiment with different colors that match your decor. After the acrylic paint is dry, I'm applying homemade Mod Podge to give it a primitive farmhouse style look. You can find a tutorial on how to make homemade Mod Podge down in the description below. While the Mod Podge is still wet, I'm going to sprinkle some dirt to add some texture to the paint. After letting the dirt mixture and the Mod Podge dry completely, I prepared some instant coffee and hot water in a small little dish. Using a sponge, I dabbed that coffee mixture on top of the dirt layer to achieve more of a primitive look that I wanted. After setting the hanger aside and letting that coffee mixture dry completely, I added my final coat of homemade Mod Podge to ensure that it was sealed properly. Now we're ready to add the finishing touches. I had some leftover coffee-stained cheesecloth from a previous project, so I cut a small strip and tied it around the neck of the hanger. To add some embellishments, I used some dried baby's breath and I hung a coffee-stained quote that I had printed on a piece of computer paper and attached it to the hanger. This DIY project is perfect for displaying children's artwork or a favorite quote or a cherished photo in your home. Not only is it simple to do, but it's also a great way to repurpose hangers and prevent them from ending up in the landfill. This is a really simple and quick upcycling project that you can do with your old spice jars. All you need is a drill and a drill bit to create some holes in the top of the plastic lid, transforming it into a handy little shaker. Whether you need to sprinkle some salt, some sugar, some flour, or even water, this little shaker can be a useful addition to your kitchen or home. Here's a fun fact about upcycling glass. Did you know that it's 100% recyclable and can be reused without losing any quality? Tin cans are my favorite items to upcycle, and there are countless ways to transform them. For example, with this one, I've sprayed it with some primer, and now I'm painting it with some acrylic paint to give it a rustic farmhouse look. I have tutorials on my channel that have all kinds of inspiration on various ways to upcycle tin cans. You can check those out after watching this video. Once that first coat of acrylic paint has dried on my upcycled tin can, I'm going to apply a second coat for added depth and coverage. To give it a unique look and texture, I'm using my homemade Mod Podge technique again, which I'm really loving and enjoying lately. I'm going to sprinkle that mixture onto the wet Mod Podge, and it's going to create, once again, that distressed and stippled effect on the surface of the tin can. After applying the Mod Podge mixture, I'm going to set it aside and let it dry completely, allowing that dirt mixture to dry and harden. And then I'm going to paint another coat of that homemade Mod Podge on top to seal it all up. We're now ready to add a graphic onto our tin can. I designed this graphic, I love it, and it's available in my Etsy store. I'll put the link down below in the description if you want to check that out and use this in one of your crafting projects. I printed my graphic on a piece of my homemade paper. I love making homemade paper, and this was made with just scrap bits and pieces that I'd saved along the way. I have a full tutorial on how to do that and even make your own frame and decal. I'll put that link down below in the description. I covered up the graphic with one coat of my matte homemade Mod Podge, let it dry, and then I trimmed off the extra paper with a ruler. It leaves a really nice distressed edge. Now we're ready to put that graphic on the tin can. Using my trusty Mod Podge mat, I'm going to apply a generous coat to the back of the homemade paper, ensuring that it's going to adhere really well, especially around the edges. I'm going to carefully place the paper onto the tin can and make sure it's exactly where I want it, and then press it down firmly. This is going to make sure the paper is adhered to the ribs of the tin can, and it's going to look nice and seamless when it's all finished. Last fall, I left out a dish of mason jar lid rings in the elements, and I just found it after all of the snow had melted. And to my surprise, they had rusted beautifully, and I was so excited to be able to use them in this tin can upcycling project. I'm using my E6000, and I'm attaching 2 of those rusty rings to the top and the bottom of the can to finish it off. The primitive look of this can combined with the rusty lids, I just love it. It's so unique, and it's just a tin can upcycle that I absolutely love. Don't throw away your used vitamin bottles just yet. In fact, I'm going to show you how you can upcycle them into 2 different projects. First project, we're going to need a vise to hold that vitamin bottle steady while we saw through it. Fortunately, my husband is a power sport mechanic and has a vise out in his garage that I can use. If you don't have a vise at home, you can maybe borrow one from a friend or use other tools to hold the bottle steady while you saw through it. After sawing off the lid and the neck of the bottle, I'm going to use a sharp utility knife to carefully trim around the bottom of that vitamin bottle. It's important to make sure it's even all the way around. Just be careful with the utility knife. The type of plastic used on this vitamin bottle is really soft, so it's easy to cut around. However, there might be other types of plastic vitamin bottles that are a little bit more tricky, and you can always just use some sandpaper to smooth around the edges. Now I've got some chocolate chips from a messy folded over bag, and I've put it in a plastic baggie, and then I've placed the neck and the lid of the vitamin bottle on top of the baggie, and then I screwed it on nice and tight. This creates a really convenient snap lid that we can open and close easily, pour out the amount of food that we need, and seal it back up, and then it can be stored neatly in our pantry. So think about the endless possibilities that you can use by repurposing lids of vitamin bottles or any other plastic container for that matter. And for the bottom part of the vitamin bottle, you can easily turn that into a holder for pencils, glue sticks, paintbrushes. Nuts are my favorite snack, and I always have a bunch of these containers left over, so I love upcycling them. Today I'm going to show you how you can make a custom label for one of these nut containers. To add a personal touch to my leftover nut container, I'm creating a custom label using CD labels. I always find these at the thrift store, so I always pick them up. After peeling off the excess stickers, I'm going to print the label design onto the shiny side of paper using my laser jet printer. I have a full tutorial on how to do this process. I'll put the link down below in the description. And this is the graphic that I'm going to be using. It's available in my Etsy store. And this process will only work on a laser jet printer. It won't work on an inkjet printer. I've got some shelf liner that I pick up at the dollar store, and we're going to cut out our graphic and then add that shelf liner on top of that graphic. This is such a simple and effective way of creating stickers for your DIY projects. I'm going to cut a piece of that shelf liner the same size as the graphic, and we want to make sure that it's nice and square and even when we put it on our project. Peel it off, lay it right into that graphic, and then we're going to make sure that we're pressing it down really firmly. I like using my Cricut tool and scrape it so all that ink can be transferred onto that shelf liner. Now check out this magic. As we peel away that shelf liner, the toner has stayed on, and we've created a DIY sticker that we can put on our upcycled nut container. you're someone who loves coffee, chances are you have a whole bunch of these empty canisters lying around. Well, I have a great upcycling idea for you. After cleaning it out thoroughly and removing the label, we're going to give it a coat of my homemade white chalk paint. This canister is cardboard, but if yours is metal, then you would want to spray it with a primer first before painting it so you would ensure that the paint was going to stick properly. Here's a fun fact about coffee. Did you know that North Americans drink about 146 billion cups of coffee a year? That's a lot of coffee and a lot of canisters that we can upcycle. Now we're going to make a homemade napkin to decoupage onto our project. I've got 1 ply of a napkin and I'm attaching it to a piece of computer paper, and I've put some glue stick around the edges so the napkin will stick to that paper. Feeding it through my printer, and we've created a custom napkin that we can decoupage onto our project. If you've not ever made homemade decoupage napkins, I have a full tutorial. It's such a fun DIY project. You need to give it a try. The link to that tutorial will be down below. This is one of my favorite ways to decoupage, and it really eliminates a lot of wrinkles. I've placed my napkin facing down on a plastic sheet, and I'm just drizzling a little bit of water on it until it's completely wet. Very gently, getting all the wrinkles out of it, and then I'm taking the edge of my scissors and just making a ragged edge around the napkin. This helps for when we decoupage it onto our project, it blends in better. Now using my Mod Podge mat, I'm going to put a light coat on my canister where I want the graphic to be. Then we're going to pick up that plastic sleeve that has our napkin on it and place it exactly where we want it. The nice thing about this technique, if it's not right where you want it, you can always lift it up and move it, and it's a little bit more forgiving. We're going to press out all of the little bubbles and wrinkles and then peel away that plastic sheet, and we've decoupaged that napkin onto our project. If you need to, you can gently use your fingers and smooth it out a little bit more, and then we're going to set it aside and let it dry completely. Once it's dried, we're going to use our polyacrylic sealer and seal that up really well. And we have repurposed a coffee canister into an ideal container for storing our furry friends' food. Its airtight lid ensures that the contents are going to remain nice and fresh. I hope you've enjoyed today's upcycles. Let me know down in the comments which one's your favorite.